Hey guys, my name is Alex Barham. I paddle for NRS and Mountain Man Outdoor Supply Company. You can find links to them in the description of this video. Please support them. They're the ones that make this possible. And please subscribe. So, the boof is almost one of the most cliche topics to cover, and yet in a way, it sort of hasn't been covered well. I always kind of rejected the idea of doing one of these videos when I was asked because I assumed that there should have been an absolute ton of content out there. But when I actually looked at what there was, I saw what you guys were meaning by, there could be something better. So I'm going to take a stab. Hopefully I can give you something that helps. But what I'm going to focus today on is just tricky boofs. Not the straight out over the edge, but ones that are complicated where you are coming in almost parallel, you're trying to hang up on a rock, those kinds of scenarios. So, real quick, what is the boof stroke? The basic boof stroke is you're coming up to a ledge you are completely perpendicular to. There is a clear place where the water is separating from rock, where you can see air and it becomes lighter. You reach forward as you're coming in with speed, grab that edge, pull into the outgoing current, and launch off, thrusting your hips forward while you throw your shoulders up and your legs in all at the same time, and you go flying away. That complicated body motion is what really screws people up. Getting fast to a point and then grabbing a stroke, you do that every eddy turn. But the jumping off is really what screws people up. What I tell people is sit on your couch, sit like you're in your boat, take your feet off the ground, and try to whip backwards into the back cushions of the couch. Imagine that you're trying to do a backflip all the way over. So you're pulling your knees to your chest, tightening and engaging your core, and throwing your shoulders back all at the same time, sort of like a backflip. The basic idea for all of this is that you're going to learn these concepts, get the fundamentals down in safe places, little rocks, little boofs, and then take them bigger and bigger. So if you don't have a boof already, go do that. Find little waves, little holes, rocks, and then step up and up and up. Now, very often out there, rapids are not perfect, and you are forced to come into drops almost parallel or at a 45-degree angle, and there's no turning to get to 90 degrees to boof off as you're usually taught to do it your first couple times. So how do you do these nearly parallel off-angle moves out? Well, the best case scenario is that the lip is sort of funky, and there's a place where there's a point or a dip in that you can use to your advantage. The best thing that you can do is arc the boat as it comes off the lip, transfer where that disconnect on the edge is going to be from basically your shin to behind your butt on the opposite side. By visualizing it that way, not only are you focusing on where your center of balance and weight distribution in the boat is, but you're also utilizing the rocker profile of the boat and keeping it moving in the same direction. The most easy to understand version of this is when you're coming into a lip at almost parallel and you have a rock on the far side of the lip that you're going to take a stroke onto and push off against as you go flying into space. By coming in really hot, touching on the inside that rock, and on the outside taking a stroke really hard against it, what you're doing is you're bridging as you're coming across at an angle, you're dragging the boat up to a stop and rising your bow up with that momentum, and then letting your stern start to fall off behind you as you get forced off sideways. This is sort of like a bump boof, or the correct term would be called smearing going off of the lip. The best way to learn how to do this is just smearing random rocks wherever you can and get comfortable with the idea of speeding up to it, picking a point at which you're going to engage, sliding on it, and then picking a point where you're going to disengage and getting comfortable with what that does to all of your edging. Once you get that figured out, really the only difference is how high up you are in the air. Once you've got this bump boof figured out, now you can start to figure out how you're going to do this nearly parallel or off angle move. Same concept, you're going to come in, you're going to visualize an arc, but now you're going to look for a place, if possible, where there's a protrusion on the lip, there's a dip in, or something else where you can either bridge and let your stern get below you, or hold your bow up as you come over to ride out in that same smearing motion without actually contacting anything. One thing that you'll find once you're doing these pure water-based boofs is that now you have more variability as you disconnect. If you make it to your spot right on time as planned, you should always be going for a very vertical, pulling in under the boat boof stroke. But if you get there a little bit late, now you have this option of reaching all the way forward with the inside and prying off. What's that going to do? It's going to make more of your momentum come off the lip faster, but it's also going to force your bow around. So instead of waiting for your stern to fall down below you, you're just throwing the bow off the lip and holding it up while everything else happens, and just manually forcing the boof to come out with a little bit of upward bow. The last thing once you're off the lip for both of these moves is that you need to be leaning a little bit into the curtain. If you think about it, if you come down and you land perfectly flat, you're going to have an edge here which is going to catch, and then you're going to topple over. But if you come down like this, when you hit, you're going to flatten off because you're going to land with the opposite edge hitting, and then you're going to roll over into flat. These are super hard to try and explain to people because there is just so much variability. There are so many different ways that you could decide to approach any given drop, but the more that you practice this and get comfortable with the concepts, the better you will become at visualizing and then executing as planned, not making it up on the fly. And the more comfortable you will be trying these on the fly when you see them. The other boof that you don't see covered very often is the late boof. So most of the time that you're taught the basics of what a boof is, you're assuming that the drop is basically like this. But the reality is that many drops look a lot more like this, with a horizon line that's at the top and a horizon line that's midway. So if you pull all the way up here at the top, well, you're not going to do anything. You're just going to race to the bottom faster. What you have to do is wait to that midpoint to boof out and then separate off the curtain. So how do you do a late boof? First of all, understand that you're not going to pull at the top and that you're going to spot your landing. It can be very mentally challenging, especially on taller drops, to wait to pull that stroke. In many cases, the magic really is to paddle hard until you see the bottom coming, and then plant a really deep stroke and pull and pull and pull and pull and pull until you hit bottom, or until your bow very gradually starts to rise. The advantage to these is that they're a little bit more reliable, since you're not trying to pull one really perfectly timed, very fast stroke all the way at the top and then see what happens all the way down. But again, they're just a different technique that you have to get comfortable with. Best thing that you can do is just take a deep breath as you roll into that lip, clear your mind, be patient, and just trust yourself that this is going to work out. The reality is that once you're in free fall, you're basically going to be able to muscle your stern down through the curtain, just through that technique that you already have, and that paddle stroke is really just there for a tiny bit of leverage. So trust yourself, do your job, everything will be fine. That's about it. There's really only so much I can do to say about the technique. The rest of it is going to be on you to wrap your head around it, figure it out, and practice it. The best thing that you can always do is ask for advice, paddle with people who are better than you, and learn lines on your local runs that make things harder and more complicated. Thank you very much. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you on the next one.